Well, most of Africa, tragically, is not a great place to live. It's very sad. And when they first created this thing called Africa Command, I was still on active duty. And I had the misfortune to open my big mouth in a room full of generals and others and say, what the hell are we calling this place Africa Com for? Africa Command? Are you crazy? If you were an African, what would you think about the United States if it created a military organization called Africa Command? I said, I'd be offended. So whatever you do, don't call it Africa Command. Well, obviously, I had a big impact. I was invited to leave, and I was not invited back to any more of those meetings. Look, Africa is a difficult place. The French portions that you're talking about in Northwest Africa have been called Afrique du Nord. This is a famous area that the French have dominated in imperial times, and they've dominated it since then, certainly in many ways, linguistically and culturally. The problem is that the Africans resent it. They've never felt as though they were given a square deal when it came to independence from France, because the French stipulated in all of the agreements certain French interests had to be protected and receive special treatment. And the French army is renowned for going wherever French interests are at stake, business interests, and the Africans are fed up with it. And so this is an example in Niger of where a supposedly U.S.-backed government with a U.S.-trained military suddenly turned around and said, I think all of you white people need to get out of here. We've had it with you. Go away. Go. Europeans leave. The Russians, haven't done business that way. The Russians, in fact, Putin recently forgave $23 billion of debt owed to Russia by many of these countries in sub-Saharan and some of Saharan Africa. I mean, it was never going to be paid back. You had a much better shot of profiting if you just forgave it, turned back the clock to zero and started over, which is what he's done. We would benefit from doing similar things in many parts of the world. In fact, we would benefit enormously if we simply admitted that we can't go on with the enormous sovereign debt that hangs over our heads, but nobody will do that. The point is, I think it had less to do with the Russians or the Chinese and simply to do with the anger and frustration that built up for a long time towards colonialism. And the Africans said, enough. We should say, fine, good luck. And then we ought to question what we're doing in all of these places with military power. If you want to go into these places, by all means, look for business, compete on the business level, but get out of this militarized foreign policy. It's a loser.